Love and Hate, written and read by Kieran Marsden. 1. Kyle Dawson made sure the pillow was behind the old woman's head, so she would sleep soundly. "My dear, what would I do without you?" said Margaret. "Don't worry, without me there would be someone else," said Kyle, raising the bed slightly so she could drink. "They're not all like you, you know. Some don't care at all," she said, taking a sip. "Ah, lovely. And nobody makes a cuppa quite like you. You're different, you really are the best," said Margaret. Kyle smiled. Perhaps he was. He had seen the others rush, and the bruises they left on fragile old arms. "Are you working tomorrow?" "I work every day. But tomorrow I won't be seeing you. You're not on my rota," said Kyle, walking to the windowsill to fill in the paperwork. "Oh, bloody hell. It better not be that Rodney. I don't care what they say. The ruffer." He knew what she meant. Whether he believed it, he wasn't sure. "I think it's Sarah." "Oh, fair enough, she's not bad. None of the girls are, but I always say you're the kindest." "Thank you, I do appreciate it," said Kyle, putting on his pen lid and tucking it into his pocket. "If you need anything in the night, press the emergency buzzer." "Yes, of course. One thing before you leave. Could you open that window just a little? It's so hot." It was true. It had been. It was them warm summer nights that are the nemesis of dreams, when only a sheet is needed. "Anything else?" "That will be fine, darling." "See you in a couple days, Margaret," said Kyle, turning off the light. He looked back, and the TV illuminated her face. She smiled from the bed he knew she would die in. It was the truth they never spoke. He picked up his bag, and it felt a little light. He undid the zip and looked in, but it was there. The book he was reading for the 5th time, the hardback version he bought online, an early printing that had cost him. He felt better knowing it was there. "Night, Margaret. Sleep well." "Thank you, dear. God bless." Two. Kyle saw the amber glow of his friend's cigarettes through the dark. All three stood at the back of the venue. He approached Austin, who blew smoke into the night. He could see his pale skin and thought he looked ghoulish. He was now clean-shaven. Kyle had wanted to do the same, but bottled it, thinking he didn't have the right shaped skull. "I didn't think he was going to show," said Austin. "Stop it." "You're soft sometimes." "No, I'm committed as anyone," said Kyle. "Doesn't feel like it." "You still working that fag job?" said Harry, who was tall and skinny. He wore glasses with thick rims and had hair so thick he couldn't do anything with it, so he kept it short. "Well, I have to work, don't I? Jobs like that cost everyone. The ones who pay for it themselves are just creating a false economy for people like you to leech off. This country needs to create, not just serve the sick," said Harry, throwing his cigarette to the ground. "Well, we can change that, can't we? Tonight we can learn how," said Austin, throwing his cigarette too. "You okay, David?" said Kyle. David was the youngest and it showed, only 5'4", and a shaven head too to mimic Austin. "Yeah, I'm fine." "You got the tickets?" said Austin. "Of course," said David, pulling them from his bag that had colourful badges on it with political agenda. "You know it was close to being cancelled," said David. "Why?" said Harry. "What do you think? Lefties, libtards, threatening the organisers as usual. They're all for free speech until it doesn't suit them," said Austin, spitting on the ground. They each took their tickets and walked to the entrance. Inside it was dark, and lights lit the stage that awaited the speaker. The room buzzed with whispers and murmur. In every chair was a man in a black shirt. "Where do we sit?" said Harry. "Does it matter? Just find a seat." "Shit. Didn't know we were supposed to wear black shirts," said Austin. "Well, we might stick out," said Kyle, tucking in his blue work tunic that poked out from the bottom of his hoodie. He felt uncomfortable about his hair too. It was quite long, and nearly every man in the room had a shaved head. "There's some seats, near the front. I think there's 4, said David. "Good lad," said Austin, patting him on the back, leading them. As they made their way down the aisle, Kyle noticed most were young. The odd older one looked angry, and as if the only thing they had ever loved was weights. They took their seat, and the sound of the microphone being turned on filled the hall. Walking on stage, taking long strides, was their man. He waved at the crowd, which applauded. He wore a black suit with a black shirt. He was clean-shaven, and his hair was cut short at the back and sides. On top, gel kept it swept over. He took to the podium and waited for the crowd to fall silent. Then he spoke. "Why are we all here? Because we're happy? Because we're proud? Maybe because we're pissed off? No. It's because we're not allowed to feel. That's right. Don't you dare feel happy or pissed off. And don't you dare ever feel pride. Not if it's the last thing you do. But why? Because women, blacks, gays, they're also proud. Proud to be proud even. They're allowed to be proud. They even get a nice pat on the back for it. Usually by the government or the police, the education. It's all supporting them. But you, he said, pointing a finger across the crowd. Put your arms out, go on, all of you. Look at that skin. You should be ashamed. Now move your arms. What's that between your legs? Yeah, you're a pervert as well. All potentially dangerous. So, they need you numb. Every day, that's what you're told. I see it. It's in the media. The diversity quotas, the advertising, education, the political correctness. It's all against you. You're not progressive. What have men like you done for the world? How about everything? And you'll keep doing so. But when they bring out the film, a woman will be taking your part. Seriously, they're covering us up, making us ashamed. I have thought about this. Why is it they can't have us proud? I think I have the answer. It's fear. They fear your potential. A world where we're proud is something that scares them. But that shouldn't scare them. It's one where we've been given reason to rise. That's what they should fear, he said. His voice was full of rage, and it resonated. The crowd got to their feet and applauded. Then, long outstretched arms went up all across the hall, as if the Fuhrer himself was stood there. After, 4 amber lights illuminated the dark in a nearby street. I thought you gave up, said Harry to Kyle. I did, but that speech got me going, you know, in a good way. Oh, it just made me want one. His Q&A after was amazing. I didn't realise how funny he was, said Harry. But he's right though. We need to stand up for ourselves, said David. Yeah, this is how it begins. First they sideline you, then mock you, then it's over, said Harry. You're quiet, Austin, said Kyle. Austin stared at the ground and smiled. Tonight, we witness someone who's going to change all this. Something's happening, I can feel it. Something's on the rise, said Austin. David put his hands on Austin's shoulders. We all felt it. Three. Kyle opened the door to his house and the familiar smell hit his nostrils. All the lights were on and Kyle could hear the fan and TV from the room his dad had not left in 3 years. Son, that you? Yeah, who else would it be? Said Kyle, slinging down his bag. He walked into the large double room that served as living room and bedroom. At the front was the sofa, coffee table and TV, where Kyle sat when he wasn't working. But the work actually never stopped, because at the back of the room, in a geriatric bed, was his father. He was a 35-stone mound of flesh that never wore clothes. A white bedsheet alone covered him. Above him was a flat-screen monitor he could manoeuvre about that attached to the ceiling. It was his window to the world and hooked up to the internet. Beside him was his desk on wheels. On that was last night's dinner and the stains. Where have you been? You're never home this late. I'm a bloody starving. Sticking a pizza. Also, I've shat myself. I'm going to need cleaning up. Kyle couldn't smell the feces yet, but he knew when he turned his dad, it would fill the room and linger through the whole house till morning. He sighed and looked at the floor. Pepperoni or vegetable, he said. Vegetable. Daddy wants to get in his car by the end of the year, he said. Kyle looked at the framed picture on the wall. There was his inspiration to lose weight. It was his Jaguar. What kind, Kyle didn't know. He didn't give a crap about cars. But he knew it was special, a vintage or a classic or whatever they called it. A counsellor had advised it, and the keys to the car hung in a glass box beneath the picture. A hammer remained always on his dad's bedside desk. In theory, when he lost enough weight, he would get up, take the hammer, and break the glass and drive his Jaguar. But Kyle knew that was just in theory. His dad had put weight on every month for the last 11. Kyle left the room, trying not to allow his dad's wheezing to annoy him too much. He entered the kitchen and turned on the oven. 10 minutes later, Kyle was pushing his dad, helping him to roll. He clung to the side of the bed, and the hot hair hit Kyle in the face. He held his breath and tried not to look at the pile of brown mess. Is it bad? Stay there, said Kyle. He rolled the dirty sheet and tucked it underneath his dad. He then dipped a sponge into hot soapy water he'd prepared and began. Right down my back, above the crack. Good lad. Kyle moved the sponge until the brownness was gone. Then he dried the towel. Keep going, it feels good. Harder, come on, properly. Kyle reached for a clean sheet and put it underneath him, then told him to roll back. He then repeated the similar process on the other side. If you'd come home on time, you wouldn't have gotten yourself into this mess, would you? You could have given me the bedpan. Kyle noticed then the feces on his wrist. He felt dirty, like excrement was in his hair. Perhaps shaving it off might have its practical benefits after all, he thought. What's that smell? Said his dad. You idiot. I swear to God if you've burnt my pizza, I will... Go on, get it out. Don't just stand there. Kyle rushed to the kitchen and opened the oven. Black smoke ballooned out. He then took a tea towel and waved the smoke away from the fire detector. You fucking idiot. I'm starving. Right, you're going to have to put the pepperoni in, aren't you? Shouted his dad. As he took the new pizza from the fridge and unwrapped it, Kyle remembered the feces on his wrist. He smeared as much of it as he could on the pizza, then stuck it in the oven. An hour later, Kyle sat on the sofa. His dad was snoring. It was almost midnight. The lights were off, and his book was in his lap. Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. He should have been tired, but he enjoyed reading it so much. But because he had work tomorrow, he reluctantly closed it. He tried to sneak out the room, when his voice spoke from the darkness. Where the hell do you think you're going? You haven't put my cream on. Kyle's head went down. He went to his dad's bedside desk and took out the little tube. His father opened his legs and whipped back the sheet. Don't be shy. Kyle put on the plastic glove and cream onto his fingertip, then applied. Good lad. Don't forget that scrotum. Softly, said his dad. Kyle could see him smiling. Slower, he said, closing his eyes. Kyle then saw it appearing between his thighs. Good night, Dad, said Kyle, putting away the lotion. A little more, please. Good night. Four. Kyle had left his dad as comfortable as he could, with a box of cereal and a carton of milk and a 2-litre bottle of Coke, like he did every morning. It was 8 a.m. It was one of them mornings that felt like it had never been night. It was warm, and he was dreading the midday sun. He looked at his phone and checked at his appointments. There was the usual Mrs. Adams and grumpy old Mr. Bennett, but there was a new address at 10 a.m. He didn't like going to new people. They were usually rude and resentful of the care, but he understood. They had felt their freedom had been taken away. He went about his normal morning routine and smiled through it. He had the same people for almost a year, and there was no thinking left to do. He just went through the motions, was polite, reminded himself it didn't matter how long it took, and the morning passed uneventfully. Then he stood outside the new door. It was a cheap old flat, perhaps made in the 70s, probably owned by the council. Cal didn't really know about these things. There was a green hedge outside and a tiny garden, and he looked into the front window. It was clear and light, and he could see the living room, but nobody was in there. At the door, he punched in a code that had been sent to his phone, and it unlocked. Inside it was clean, like it had been renovated, refurbished but basic. To the right was a living room. At the back was a kitchen that led to a small yard, and on his left was a closed door. He presumed it was the bedroom. Hello? Home care? Shouted Kyle, feeling like a maid. Hello? Said a woman's voice behind the door. Everything okay? Just 1 second, please. Okay, you may come in. Laying in bed was a young girl with dark skin. She wore what Kyle thought was a sleeping mask covering her eyes. He was shocked as she looked about his age. Are you okay? Said Kyle. Sorry, you're not a woman, are you? Said the girl. No. Well, that's great. I wanted a female. No offence, seriously. I don't mean it like that. No, I understand. I can go if you want. I'll call up the office. There must have been a mix-up or something. Well, to be honest, I don't need much. I'm new here, and I just need a little bit of help finding my way around, that's all. Carol then realised the thing around her eyes wasn't to help her sleep. Are you blind? Said Kyle. Yes, I am. This thing isn't for fashion, she said, smiling, touching the eye mask. Sorry, what's your name? Said Kyle. I'm Alicia. Yours? Kyle. Well, hello, Kyle. Could you please do me a favour? My clothes should be on the end of the bed. That's unless I've accidentally kicked them to the floor in my sleep, as I sometimes do. Nope, they're still there, said Kyle. Oh, that's good. Means I've slept well. No nightmares, she said, patting at the end of the bed until her hand landed on her clothes. So if you just wait outside until I get dressed, is that okay? Said Alicia. Oh yeah, of course, said Kyle, leaving the room quickly, standing in the hallway for a few minutes. Okay, I'm done. You can come in. He walked in, and she was sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the eye mask. Her long black hair had been tamed slightly, but tried to remain as bed hair at some points. I've been here 2 days, still working everything out. Could you take my arm and help me around? Said Alicia, raising her forearm. Kyle felt hesitant. He had worked in care for years, but this was different. He grabbed her forearm, and she laughed. What's the matter? Said Kyle. No, not like that. I don't bite. Oh, sorry. Look, like this, said Alicia, linking arms with him. Now show me to the kitchen, she said, smiling. Kyle led her through the hallway into the kitchen. So is there a chair I can sit on? Said Alicia. Oh, sorry, just here, said Kyle, taking a chair from the table. I'll put it behind you. Thanks. Think you could make us both a coffee? If I remember, it's in the third cupboard on the left, closest to the back door. She was correct, and Kyle put on the kettle. So, do you live locally? Asked Alicia, as the sound of boiling water filled the room. Yeah, very close. Can I just say, if you prefer a woman, I don't mind. It can easily be arranged. No, it's fine. I don't need much help anyway. It's only for a couple of weeks until I know where I am, really. You don't feel awkward around me, do you? Said Alicia. No, of course not. I just don't want you to feel uncomfortable around me, that's all, said Kyle. Well, I don't, said Alicia. The kettle popped, and Kyle made the coffees, which they both had black, though Alicia had a teaspoon of sugar. Can I ask you something? Said Kyle. Of course. Was you born, blind? Yeah. No. So something happened? Yup. Oh, I see, said Kyle, wondering what. He then wondered if that sounded insensitive, but he could tell she was smarter than that. It then went silent and felt a little awkward. You want me to make you some breakfast? Said Kyle. No, I want you to show me where everything is, so I can make breakfast. Could you do that? Of course. Kyle showed her where the cornflakes in the fridge was. He was surprised by how much she knew already, and wondered if he was really needed. He supposed it was all a precaution. She finished her cornflakes, and it was a little weird watching her eat. Thank you, Kyle. Why, I didn't do anything. You don't have to say thank you for everything. Alicia smiled and said, Okay, can you help me with one more thing? Yep, that's why I'm here. I just need a hand getting into the shower. Don't worry, I'll get naked when you leave the room, said Alicia, smiling. Don't you worry, naked women don't frighten me too much, said Kyle. Alicia put her arm up and Kyle took it with more confidence and walked her to her ensuite. Okay, so all your shower gels and shampoos are on the tap by the wall, and I will leave a towel outside on the floor and one to your left, on this bar. Can you feel it? Said Kyle, taking her hand. Thanks. There's a step before the shower, isn't there? Yeah, there is. Would you like me to help you in? No, it's okay. Just make sure I'm facing it directly. I should be fine. When you leave, just don't close the door all the way. If you hear me scream or bang, you have permission to come in and see me naked, okay? Said Alicia. Deal, said Kyle. He waited on her bed and listened to her undress. Then listened to her take steps into the shower and the hiss of the water. Then she yelped. You okay? Said Kyle. The water's freezing. Oh, I see. Why do I keep saying that? Kyle whispered to himself, slapping his forehead. He waited for 15 minutes before the water stopped. Are you okay? Said Kyle. Yeah, fine, said Alicia. Several minutes later, she came back into her bedroom all dressed. Her black hair was wet and dangled down in front of her breasts. I have to put these back on. We forgot to get me some clothes out, said Alicia. Oh, sorry, I didn't even think. I will get them. No, don't worry. I will have a pyjama day. Take me to the living room, please, she said. There was a single chair and sofa. Alicia made her way to the chair. That should do me. Shall I put on the TV? I prefer the radio, actually, said Alicia. Kyle slapped himself on the forehead again. Are you okay? Said Alicia. Yeah, fine. It's okay, you don't offend me. Kyle went over to the little modern radio on her desk side and turned on BBC Radio 4. I could have done that, said Alicia, with her smile that Kyle thought was very pretty. You can do one more thing for me, actually. What's that? Make me another coffee, said Alicia, laughing. She felt cheeky asking, and Kyle thought it was very endearing. Yeah, of course. As the kettle boiled, he stood at the door. She sat in her chair very still, just listening to the radio. He thought of how, when he left, she'd just be sitting there all day. He made her the coffee and placed it beside her. "Thank you, Kyle." "That's okay, Alicia. Can I ask something?" "Yeah, of course." "How old are you?" "I'm 28. "You're the same age as me," said Kyle. "That's nice," said Alicia. "I wish I could stay a little longer. You seem very nice," said Kyle. "Yeah? You seem nice too." "Well, I'm due here every morning for the rest of the week. You sure that's okay with you?" "Yeah, that's fine. I have the office's number and the emergency buzzer. Maybe tomorrow you could just help me around a little more. I just need to get to know how to use the oven. Would that be okay?" said Alicia. "Yeah, of course it would. Right, I have to go to my next appointment now. Bye. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Bye, Kyle. And thank you." 5. It was 8 p.m. and the sun was setting. Kyle had finished his official job and was sat with his friends. An evening orange sun spilled into the room at Austin's house. Well, his mother's house. Austin had just taken over. 2 sofas faced one another, and a dirty coffee table full of ashtrays separated them. The 4 relaxed and smoked. Austin had removed the TV 2 weeks ago, calling it leftist propaganda. "How great was last night. I still have shivers," said Austin. "Yeah, every word that came out of his mouth was true. It's just nobody dares say it," said David. "I know, makes me angry. We sit here doing nothing. That's the problem, isn't it? We do nothing," said Austin. "Yeah, and everyone else is getting louder. We're the only section of society it's acceptable to ridicule without legal ramifications or losing your job," said Harry. "It's worse than that. It's humiliating. What would our grandfathers think? They'd be fucking ashamed." "That saying's true. Hard times create hard men. Hard men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times, and so on. Well, we're the weak men living off their hard work. Hard times are coming for someone. We should be the hard men, making the change. That's how I want to live. I don't know about you guys," said Austin. "I agree. We need to make a stand. But how?" said Harry. "I know," said Austin, taking a long drag on his cigarette, then filling the room with his smoke. "Violence." They looked at one another and didn't know what to say. Talking is good, creates ideas, it unifies. But it must lead to one thing if it's going to be successful. "That's violence," said Austin. "Ever heard of Gandhi?" said Kyle. "Fuck Gandhi," said Austin. "It's just a point." "You know what, mate? Isn't it about time you went to change your dad's shitty sheets?" said Austin. Harry and David laughed. "Yeah, you're right. Enjoy your evening, fellas," said Kyle, standing up and leaving. 6. Kyle got home and could hear his dad sleeping. He opened the living room door and listened to him snoring. He entered quietly, then remembered his bag and reached for it, careful not to wake his father. He walked to the sofa quietly and took out his book. He began to read. The television was off, and the light came from the room his dad laid in. Kyle then heard something strange coming from the monitor above his dad. It sounded like a woman screaming. It was horrendous, blood-curdling. Kyle had never heard anything like it in a film he'd watched. He couldn't concentrate and got up to turn it off. As he got close, he saw the screen and dropped his book. It showed a naked child tied down, with a man standing behind. Kyle jumped forward and pressed the off button. He then looked at his dad. He didn't wake. His mouth was wide open, and he sounded like a pig with its nose in the dirt. Kyle wanted to drive his knuckles deep into his father's nose. He breathed in deeply and tried to meditate the hate away. He picked up his book and went back to the sofa but couldn't read. He put his head between his legs and cried. The memories were too painful. 7. Kyle had helped Alicia up, got her breakfast, and this time got her clothes out. She sat in her chair by the radio in leggings and a blue blouse. "Thank you for showing me everything in more detail this morning. I don't know why, but I feel comfortable around you, asking you things. You don't judge," said Alicia. "Thanks. It's nice to help someone like you, actually." "Like me?" "Yeah, someone grateful and graceful. Someone understanding." "Graceful? I don't think I've ever been called that before. But I try." "Can you stop and have another coffee with me?" said Alicia. "I suppose you're wondering how I got like this. I think it's nice you haven't asked. You're so polite. Yeah, I didn't have to be at my appointment for a bit. I'll make the coffees, said Kyle. When he returned, Alicia was sat in her chair, and he sat on the sofa. Are you okay then? Said Kyle. Of course. I mean, I wish I could see, but apart from that, let me tell you what happened. If I stop, it's because the memories are too painful. But give me time, and I should be able to get through it. Of course, I understand, said Kyle. Let me think. So about 5 years ago, me and my family moved to Iraq. I'll be honest, my dad was a fanatic. He heard about the beginning of a caliphate. You know what that is? Said Alicia. Yeah. Well, me and my brothers and sisters, we were never devout. We pretended to be around our parents. When he said we were moving to Iraq, well, I was excited. I was the oldest and could have stayed in England, but my whole family was moving, so I decided to go, said Alicia, taking a sip of coffee. Immediately, I knew I'd fucked up. It was awful. They forced me to cover up. If I stepped outside, men would pull up in a van and demand I dressed appropriately. My dad changed. Like I said, he'd always been a fanatic, but he became possessed. Soon I didn't recognise him. One night 3 men came into my room and took me. I was told my dad had agreed for me to be married. That's when it began, said Alicia. She took a second to compose herself. I pray my dad had no idea of what he'd done, but I'm not sure. I think he knew he'd sold me. Alicia stopped, and Carl watched her lip tremble. They raped me. Daily. Took turns. Mocked my English accent, called me a Western whore. They starved me, tied me. I don't know why, she said, touching the eye mask. I think this was boredom. They took a knife, said I wouldn't need them. I went numb. I was passed around. Men would do all kinds of things to me. It went like that for a couple of years until I was rescued. I came back to England about 6 months ago. I was in a care room at first. I appreciate what they did for me. As for my parents, I've been told they're probably dead, said Alicia. Kyle could see her eyebrows tense. She wanted to cry, but was putting on a brave face. He wanted to hug her, but knew he couldn't. Then she said, Thank you. Kyle reached out and held her hand. She held his fingers, and it felt nice to hold someone. Both of them thought it, but they didn't say. 8. 4 amber lights lit up the dark. They waited around the corner from a train station in an alley. Down there. There's loads of them, said Austin. All 4 had on their darkest clothes. The hoods were up, and they smelled of vodka. They'd come up with the plan an hour ago, and it was almost midnight. Don't stop. Be brave and go for it, said Austin, drinking the last bit from the bottle and throwing it down the alley. They listened to it shatter. Come on, let's have ourselves one of these bastards. Austin led the way across the road to the central station. On cardboard and sleeping bags were homeless men. One saw them approach and tried to get away, but his movement made him a target. Why are you here? Shouted Austin, putting his boot into the back of the man's head. Go back! Go back! Screamed Austin with rage, repeatedly kicking. The other rough sleepers moved away and watched as David and Harry began to kick too. Kyle looked and watched the whole scene, and didn't know what to do. It didn't seem right. What are you doing? Come on! Cried Austin. Kyle put the man's groans to the back of his head, came forward and kicked the man as hard as he could. His friends laughed. They stopped when he stopped moving. Then they ran away, laughing through the night all the way back to Austin's house. Look at the blood, said David, wiping his boot with a tissue. The 4 looked at the paper, now read. You think he's dead? Said Harry. Not a chance. We took it easy, said Austin, taking a long drag on his cigarette. Next time, though, said Austin. Harry and David smiled. When Cal got home, the alcohol had worn off. He stood at the end of his dad's bed and looked down. Cal knew some deserved to die. Austin said that homeless man wasn't dead, but Cal wasn't sure. He'd kicked him hard. He might not be now, but by sunrise. He listened to the rain on the window. It was a hot night again, and he wondered if it would thunder. He could smell his father, but he wasn't going to wake him. If anything, he wanted him less conscious. 9. Alicia had invited Kyle round for a meal that night. He wasn't sure how she'd done it. He had only shown her how to turn the oven on, but on the table was a complete meal. Shepherd's pie in a glass tray, in the centre of the table with a serving spoon in it. Around that was different bowls of vegetables. Knives and forks sat beside the plates. Beside them was glasses of red wine. It smelt delicious. He was in awe as she put cooking utensils in the sink. "Right on time," said Alicia with that smile. "Amazing. How did you? Not bad for a blind girl, hey?" "You can say that again." "I will wait. See if it tastes good, then I'll say it again." They tucked into the food, and it was delicious. Kyle wanted to compliment her again and again, but stopped. He didn't want to seem patronising just because she was blind. "What do you think?" said Alicia. "Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, wow. I hate to sound ignorant, but honestly, I didn't think you'd be so capable. You're amazing." "I don't have eyes, but one day I hope to make a good wife," said Alicia. Kyle said nothing. He sat there staring across the table. "Don't worry. You will, Alicia." "Thank you, Kyle." "Thank you. They are two favourite words, aren't they?" said Kyle. Alicia laughed. "They are. But I'm thankful, though. You're a nice person, and for that, I say thank you," said Alicia. After the meal, Kyle went to the toilet. When he entered the living room, Alicia was sat on the sofa, lit by a lamplight. Beside her was his bag, and in her hands was the book, Mein Kampf. "I didn't know you liked to read," said Alicia. Kyle sat beside her and took the book from her hands. "Why did you go through my bag?" "I didn't go through it," she said, smiling. "I just sat on it and felt the book, so I took it out. What are you afraid of? I'm going to see something," she said, laughing. "That's not funny," said Kyle. "I thought it was. Oh, I'm sorry. I've offended you, haven't I?" "I won't do it again," said Alicia. "No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left it there," said Kyle, taking her hand. She smiled. "What is it?" said Alicia. "What?" "The book. What are you reading?" Kyle looked at the title and put it aside. "It's nothing. If you don't want to tell me, that's fair enough. Is it an embarrassing self-help book?" "I once listened to." "Alicia," said Kyle. He touched her cheek and moved her face to his and kissed her. Her hands touched his face. She stopped kissing him and explored his features with her fingertips. Then after 10 seconds, she began to kiss him again. After 30 seconds, she was leading him to her bedroom. 10. "Where was you last night?" said Austin, sitting on his sofa staring at Kyle. "Just at home. Why?" "I don't know. Just you come here every night. Wondered what had changed," said Austin, taking a beer from the coffee table. Just my dad, you know." "Yeah, I know. Anyway, I have some good news. I told these two last night," said Austin, doing a little drum roll with his fingers on the table. "There's a demonstration, a march in 2 days' time, right through the middle of town. All of us in our black shirts to march proudly, waving the flag true, showing them the real nation. Everyone's gonna shit a brick. Finally, they will know we're not taking this shit anymore. We're taking it all back," said Austin. "Cool," said Kyle. "Cool? I thought you'd have something more to say than that. Oswald would be proud." "How many do you think will be there?" said David. "A couple thousand, maybe more." "No way." "Yeah, there's a real buzz online. That event the other night got what, 500? You have to pay for that. Well, this is for free, and it's on a Saturday. People from all over the country are going to come. About time we made a display." "Still, it's not enough," said Austin. "What do you mean?" said Harry. "See, I think we're looking at the beginning of it all, the rise. I want to be able to say I was getting my hands dirty before we legitimised, to say I was doing my bit. So, I have a proposition. We kill one." "What? Who?" said David. "An undesirable," said Austin. "Yeah, and I think I have the perfect target," said David. "Go on." "Well, around the corner from where I live, there's this girl. She's black and blind. She lives alone, I think. I've never really seen her with anyone. I see her in the shop all the time," said David. Kyle's stomach turned. His heart raced and his palms went sweaty as he told himself to stay calm. Black and blind, eh? She would fill some quotas, wouldn't she? "Do you know where she lives?" "No, not exactly. Shame. And unfortunately, we can't just go killing women in the street. Yet," I think we can get another at the train station. It's a hotbed, an infestation down there, said Austin. Cal kept quiet, hoping the conversation would move itself further along. How can we do it? Said Harry. A blade, I think. Don't think. In and out, then run. You know you're doing your bit. Cal looked at his friends and wondered how he'd got there. 11. Kyle and Alicia laid naked on her sofa, covered by a blanket. They had made love, and now her arms were wrapped around Kyle as he watched TV. I love Tarantino, said Alicia, as Kyle stroked her forehead. I can enjoy his films, even though I can't see. Notice his attention to when it comes to sound, them sirens, the sound effects of the feet, the choice of music. He relies on sound to blemish and carry his films at the same time, said Alicia, shuffling to get more comfortable, putting her head on his chest. I never really noticed until you just said that, said Kyle. You see a lot when you're blind. Things a person with vision wouldn't. When she said that, Kyle happened to look through the window into the street. He saw 3 little amber lights in the dark. He looked more closely, and there was Austin shaking his head with an evil grin. You can feel people's moods. I can feel you shaking and your heart racing, said Alicia. Kyle watched his friends walk into the darkness. Kyle, what's the matter? Said Alicia. Nothing. I know you're lying. Kyle had put his clothes on and seen Alicia into bed. It was close to 11 p.m. What's the matter? Please tell me, said Alicia. Nothing. But promise me, if anything happens, anything suspect, then call me and press the emergency buzzer. Do you understand? Why are you being like this? I just care, that's all. I know, that's sweet, but... she said, taking his hand. Anything, you call me. I wish you could stay. I wish I could too, said Cal, kissing her. Good night. Good night. Cal checked the doors and windows were locked before he left. As he walked home, his phone buzzed. He answered it quick, fearing it was Alicia. But no, it was a text from Austin. It read, Traitor. 12. Kyle, that you? Where you been? Shouted his dad. Kyle threw his bag down and entered the hot room and walked to his dad's bed. Why the hell do you keep staying out so late? I've shit myself again. It's a right mess. Right, before you start, get into that kitchen and put me a pizza in. Then get a cake from the fridge. I'm going to eat it tonight. Then get me a 2-litre bottle of Coke from the garage. The one you left me this morning didn't last long. I'm bloody dehydrated thanks to your neglect. I tell you, it's abuse this. Go on, pizza in, Coke, then clean me up. Fucking hell, said Carl's dad. In the garage, Carl turned on the light. The Jaguar shimmered. To a car enthusiast it was art, but to him it was just metal. He grabbed the Coke and returned to the living room. Carl put on the gloves and apron and rolled his dad. He had not spoken once, but his dad continued. Careful, and this time don't you dare burn that pizza, boy. Oh yeah, that's it. Get Daddy right in there. That's how he likes it. Oh yeah, don't you know? Oh yeah, lather it up. Get actually in there, harder. That's it, yeah. Carl put in the clean sheet and let go of his dad. He rolled back quicker than usual. Jesus Christ, do you mind? A bit of fucking courtesy wouldn't go amiss. Right, come on, pull that sheet out. That's a good lad. Oh, look what you've done. You've got Daddy all excited. He's come out to see you. Remember when you was a boy? Remember them games we used to play? You liked it, didn't you? You could see him better in them days, couldn't you? Do you ever think about them days and the things we used to do? You need to listen to me very carefully, said Kyle, covering his dad with the sheet. Listening, said his dad. No, I need you to be quiet. What? Seriously, not a word. I'm not feeling so good. Let's say there's a lot on my mind. If you continue, I can't guarantee your safety. Kyle? Honestly, it's in your best interest not to say another word. Your voice. I'm going to get your pizza and I'm going to put it in front of you. You won't see me till the morning. Please, do not say a word or I'll break your nose. Now I'm getting that pizza. Don't you even dare say good night. Kyle got the pizza and left his dad, who didn't say a thing. 13. The next morning, when Kyle got to Alicia's, there was a silence. He put his head down and approached her bedroom door. It was open slightly. He pushed it, and light from inside filled the hallway. He looked in, and she was on her back in the centre of the bed, with her legs spread wide open, ankles and wrists tied to the bedposts. The bedsheets were drenched in blood. She was naked, apart from her eye mask. It tricked his brain to thinking there was a slight chance she was alive, only sleeping, but he knew it couldn't be. There was too much blood. He knelt on her bed and touched her eye mask delicately. He then lifted it, to see her face completely. Her eyelids were closed, and the smile he'd fallen in love with was gone. He began to cry. After a minute he returned the eye mask and stood. He knew what to do. 14. Kyle returned home and walked into the living room. He looked at his dad, pulling back his belly fat and touching himself. His dad was looking up at the screen. "What are you doing?" shouted his dad. Kyle walked up to the bedside desk and picked up the hammer. "Don't you dare smash anything. I tell you now, boy." Kyle raised the hammer, and with all his might he smashed in his dad's skull. There was a popping noise, and his dad's arms and legs went straighter than he had ever seen them in years. Then slowly his body began to fit. A powerful seizure took over his body, and saliva frothed on his mouth. Kyle raised the hammer a second time. With another blow, blood poured from his head, and his muscles eased back into a flabby carcass it had been. Kyle then screamed and smashed the monitor playing a horror film. He then walked up to the glass box on the wall and smashed it, taking the keys. 15. Kyle could see them. The crowd was all marching in black. There was the heart of darkness. He could see the counter-protesters, screaming, looking like they were throwing things. He put his foot down. The engine roared. He heard nothing from the outside. He just watched bodies and contorted faces bounce up off the car into the street. Then it was over. Something stopped him. Maybe he'd crashed. Maybe he'd passed out. 16. Kyle sat in the prison canteen all alone. He didn't know if he was safe. He didn't feel it. One had told him that morning they admired him. All that killing, they had said. But he also said he couldn't protect him. He said, "There's no society here, son."